I'm going to introduce our speaker for this session on MetaDoor. We have Jamie Kutzuba from ExLibris, and she is a product manager there. She will be talking to us today about this new platform that ExLibris has. We're interested to see what it's all about. Jamie, thank you for being here this morning.
Thanks, Joy. I really appreciate it. Hello, everyone. As Joy said, I'm Jamie Kutzuba. I am the product manager for MetaDoor at ExLibris. Some of you may have met me in a previous role as solutions architect team lead. I was doing a lot of different demos previously. And I also lived a former life as a librarian. So I'm a former systems librarian. I implemented Alma and a few other ExLibris products back in the day. So I do have some real life experience in the library as well. So let's go ahead. I'm going to stop my video for a second and we'll jump right into the session. So thank you again for having me here. I'm really excited to be given the opportunity to talk about MetaDoor. MetaDoor is a really strategic initiative that we've been working on at ExLibris for a little while. And the plan here is really to build a community, an open community surrounding a free metadata sharing platform. And our hope is that this is a platform that can really make your metadata workflows more efficient, automated, and simplified. So for our agenda today, I'll be talking about just giving a kind of short description of metadata and libraries today, give you an overview of MetaDoor. I'll spend some time demonstrating the main components of the platform. And as we're already in the middle of the development phase, I can share with you a few workflows in a real system. We have heard a few questions about the relationship of MetaDoor and the community zone. So we've been getting questions from the Alma community. So I will take some time to clarify our vision with these two services. And MetaDoor really is a unique initiative at ExLibris. So I want to describe the two different tracks that are required for building the platform. We'll talk about the development program that we have started. We've got a great group of development partners. And then finally in this session, you can learn how to become part of this really exciting, powerful community and share your metadata with the platform. So with that, it's a long-standing goal of libraries to connect its users with the information they need. This is not coming as a surprise to any of you, I'm sure. And really, from cuneiform tablets to computer files, metadata has been a key factor in helping people organize and locate information. As we know, there's a very strong correlation between good metadata and the ability of library users to find the materials they need. It's a daunting task to manage all of the information we produce as a society. Librarians and catalogers in particular have played a critical role in ensuring discoverability and access to this ever-increasing amount of data via their diligent metadata work. And yet the existing technologies and workflows do not truly support staff as they deal with the exponential increase of new formats and information. Creating and enriching bibliographic records is a time-consuming and costly task. Inefficient processes require many manual steps fragmented across multiple systems. Dated technology has really no support for linked data. And then to add insult to injury, current systems force libraries to pay to use and share the metadata that they themselves create. We want to break through these barriers together with MetaDoor, an open metadata ecosystem of the future, by opening the door to metadata everywhere. We envision the librarians worldwide will be working together towards the best possible cataloging experience, which ultimately provides our end users with trustworthy information in the formats they need to ensure positive user experiences. Said plainly, our vision is that MetaDoor will allow you to share high-quality records simply at no cost. So to achieve this, our focus is on these four pillars of the MetaDoor experience. So MetaDoor is community-based. Bib record contribution from libraries is a core aspect of this initiative. Many libraries invest significant time in creating quality records and enriching existing ones, and we want to provide a platform that allows for better sharing, better collaboration, and better enrichment. MetaDoor is free and open to all libraries, regardless of your library system. This is not a commercial service, and there'll be no charges to use the MARC metadata tools or the preferred record service, which we'll talk about shortly. MetaDoor workflows should be efficient, supported by a powerful index, intuitive interfaces, and automatic processes. To this end, the platform should be embedded within library workflows. And then we want MetaDoor to increase library resource discoverability by improving and simplifying metadata processes. That in and of itself will really assist in discoverability for our end users. But also moving forward in sort of a phase 2 of the project, we hope to be able to tackle linked data and that linked data experience at scale. So we feel this is a truly revolutionary way to approach metadata sharing. And I want to illustrate that if we dive a little bit deeper into some of the key components of the platform. So the basis for MetaDoor are libraries' bibliographic records. And we're starting with the Alma community. Those bibs, they already exist in the cloud. So with your consent, we can add those bibliographic records to the global index automatically. There's no need to do any sort of manual importing or exporting on your end. This is something that our team can handle behind the scenes. This global index that we're talking about here, it represents all of the shared bibliographic records. So to be clear, ExLibris does not take governance over this data. Shared records are still going to be your records, and you'll have full ownership. And we're simply providing a platform, a peer-to-peer index that allows for the sharing and collaboration, but the data itself still belongs to libraries. The global index will allow us to provide the preferred record service. This smart service will allow librarians to quickly find the best bib record for their collection based on a scoring algorithm and institutional preferences. And we'll definitely dive into this a little bit more. And then, of course, like finding the best record, workflows should be automated. So copy cataloging, as we said, can be very time consuming. And if we think of all the different steps and systems that we use to find the right record to represent a resource in a collection, it is quite intimidating in some ways, very time consuming. So we want to embed MetaDoor within Alma cataloging processes, but also those of other library systems to enrich the records automatically so that your workflows are simpler and more efficient. And lastly, MetaDoor is an open platform. So any library, not just ExLibris customers, not just Alma customers, any library can use MetaDoor to get high quality records via a web interface and APIs. So initially, MetaDoor will have 3 bibliographic record sources: national libraries, the Alma knowledge base, and consenting Alma institutions. So right now, we're working with a number of national libraries. We want to bring on many national libraries globally. The Alma Community Zone can supply some e-resource records, but really the most important is the participation of the Alma community, of the library community. And this is, you've heard me say it a couple times, but this is really a key element of MetaDoor. So just with Alma institutions alone, there are more than 2,000 Alma institutions. Those institutions have over 2.1 billion records, and that represents over 275 million unique titles. So that's really a fantastic starting place for collaborative cataloging and record sharing. Libraries that don't fall into one of these categories will still be able to use MetaDoor. So these are really just the initial contribution sources. And we really hope that you'll contribute as well, but we'll discuss this shortly towards the end of the session. Before we continue, I'm often asked a question, something like, well, what if we have a group of records that we just can't share to MetaDoor. Can we exclude them? So sometimes these are very specific law titles or medical titles that you're getting that have very, very restrictive sharing licenses attached. And yes, you can exclude them. You can manage which records you're contributing to MetaDoor via a new metadata management tag, and that's available in 3 flavors. And I have some slides to take a look at that at the end of the session. Feel free to toss your questions in the chat. Hopefully I'm making sense, but if there's things that you want to know more about as we're moving through, don't hesitate to toss in some chat questions and we'll address them soon. So let's envision for a moment the metadata architecture. And in this case, each resource is represented in the index by an entry that we call a single global title. The global title then points to all of the different libraries with a representative bib record in their contributing library system. So what we're not doing is copying your records into a giant database. We're not creating a database. We're not creating a repository. This is simply an index. We are also not running any processes on these records to make changes. As I said before, these records are your records. We are not taking governance. So we're not touching the data to merge or change any of your bibliographic records. So in this example here, you can think of the index sort of like a map. Let's pretend that I'm working over at Blue Institution and I received a brief bibliographic record for title X, and I want to enrich it. So MetaDoor can look at the title. It can say, I know that all of these different libraries have a version of this particular resource, but Periwinkle National Library has the highest quality record, very robust, really excellent. And MetaDoor will recommend that you pull the record from Periwinkle National Library. So it's really a map to the different libraries that hold the different versions of the resource or represent the different versions of the resource. So with the index in mind, MetaDoor, as I said, can point you to the best record for your library situation. And that's because it's calculating a rank for each of the different versions of the global title. So first is the record score. So MetaDoor is creating this record score that reflects the coverage and richness of the metadata within the bib. So you can think about this as the breadth and the depth of the record, how robust it is. And then next, your preferences are taken into consideration. So things like authority vocabulary, language, cataloging standards, and more. So for example, this approach can let a cataloger find an RDA record with robust cataloging that maybe includes a summary in the 520, table of contents in the 505, from a music library with German subject authorities. Still another cataloger might want a similar record, but from a particular art library that they respect, and that would have LC subject headings, for example. So the best record for you will depend on the quality of the record and your particular cataloging preferences. Currently, we're working with a really fantastic group of development partners. They're helping us to tweak the algorithm, determine the necessary preferences, testing a number of different workflows. And the input from these Alma and non-Alma libraries around the world and the US is really critical to the development of MetaDoor. So as I've said, MetaDoor will be open and free to any library in the world. This is not just ExLibris customers. And for non-Alma libraries, there'll be 2 ways to access the platform, via a web interface or via a number of different APIs. So a new web interface will be available to everyone for searching and record download, and I'll show you this momentarily. And then external APIs are planned to allow other library systems and services to integrate with MetaDoor. So whether that is another library vendor using the APIs to embed MetaDoor within their system, or whether that's individual libraries building special tools that help them with their cataloging work, we're going to be making these APIs available openly. So with that, I've said MetaDoor is not for Alma users, or not just for Alma users, rather. So what I want to show you next is a prototype of what our development team is working on in terms of the web interface. We are very close to having the final product out, but I need to log into the VPN to do that. And for today, it's just a bit easier to show you the prototype here. So I've brought up my web browser and I've gone to the MetaDoor open web website here. And I'll simply type into the search box. So we'll look for green. I'll execute my search. And then here we see all of the results for that particular keyword search. Of course, I could search by ISBN or author, any number of different access points as is appropriate. But let's take a look at this first resource here. So green, your place in the new energy revolution. And this is in fact the title that I want to copy catalog. I already have a brief bib for it, but I'd like something a bit more robust than just a few lines of mark. And we see here that there are over 160 versions of this bib available, but MetaDoor is recommending the preferred record to me. So this is a suggested record based on that rank that we talked about earlier. So the record score and the preferences that I've already defined. And I can go ahead and, without further ado, go ahead and just download the preferred record. So this is going to be a very high quality record, again, based on the score and my preferences. But perhaps I'd like to explore this record a little bit more, see what's going on. So I get, if I click in, I'll see the full bit of information for this record. I'm presented first with the details as they might display to our end users in discovery, and can get a sense of what this looks like. It might be the case that you live and breathe MARC. That's not a problem. The MARC view is of course available here as well, so you can get some insight into exactly what lives in this particular record. And then, if you're curious to see additional versions, you absolutely can. So we'll click on this link here, and we're taken to the full list of all of the different versions for this particular bibliographic record. And we can see information about the rank here. So this is the record that was initially suggested. It's ranked at 100. It's very, very high. There's been 353 downloads. A number of people have liked this. But you can explore other versions as well. So ranked 98, ranked 80, and so on and so forth. Additionally, while you're here, you can change your preferences. So if you decide, I would actually like to see this in German, in Italian, you'd be able to make changes to the language, to the cataloging conventions, to your authority preferences, and more. So this is the open web interface. This will be the web interface that anyone can use, any library can openly use. But because we have the ability to control what's happening, control the development of Alma, we're going to add some additional efficiencies into Alma via MetaDoor. And I want to think about what this all looks like in practice for Alma users specifically. So let's imagine that you just purchased a new book. With this new development of MetaDoor, Alma can automatically check for the highest quality record in the MetaDoor platform and then enrich the brief bib that was imported when you purchased that book. Or perhaps there are already a few bibliographic records in your catalog that could be further enriched. Based on the preferences that you determine, Alma could automatically enrich those bibliographic records in bulk via MetaDoor. So I'll talk a little bit about the automatic enrichment shortly, but let's first focus on how we'd enrich individual bibs. So this is still quite automated, but in the kind of list of workflows that we have, and I'll talk about that automation in a bit, this is very fast, available in the metadata editor, but this is in case you'd like to actually touch the different records. So let me pull up my instance here. So this is my development environment. This is what I'm using for demos, for development work. This is also what our development partners are using. So this is a real environment. Let's pretend for a moment that earlier today, the brief bibliographic records from an EOD order appeared in Alma, and I want to enrich some of these records. So in this case, I've already pushed data-centric biology here over to the metadata editor for enrichment. In previous times, I might use a Z3950 connection to explore different libraries one by one to try to enrich this record. I could even just click in and start to add additional metadata. But you'll notice here that this MetaDoor, this new button, is lit up. And what I'm going to do instead of hand coding this record or using Z3950 is to click MetaDoor. So this is going to show me that high quality record, that preferred record from MetaDoor, based on the quality, the robustness of the record, and the preferences that I've already set behind the scenes. And you can see here that my original brief bib here is ranked at 35. So not particularly high, and we can we can visualize here that this is not a very well cataloged record. The MetaDoor version, on the other hand, is 103, so very high. And as we scroll through, we can see it's just the robust data that exists here. Many different subjects, some useful 500 notes, and so on. So from here, I can use some of my standard Alma cataloging functionality to enrich my record. So I'll go ahead and say copy and overlay, copy and merge, and then execute. And if there's any normalization rules that are set, the data will automatically also be cleaned up from that perspective. But we see here that within 1 second, we have this fully, very robustly cataloged record. I'll go ahead and save, and when I do, the enriched record will be searchable in Alma, and subsequently, within another second or two, searchable in Discovery for our end users. So I am also able to navigate over to search for this resource in Alma. Doing a little dev work behind the scenes, so hopefully this will get me where I need to go. So here we see that fully saved, fully cataloged resource available for searching in Alma. And then I want to point out a couple bits of metadata about the metadata. We have information about the new score. We have information about the enrichment source as well. So that being, which library did this resource come from? In this case, it was enriched from the University of Pennsylvania catalog. So we're able to then kind of go on about our day, either interacting individually with these records and using that enrichment, or doing the automatic enrichment, which will save us even more time. So you can imagine if this is just to run behind the scenes for me, how much faster that would be for copy cataloging. But I'll pause that thought for a second and pop back over to my PowerPoint. So you've heard me say a number of times now that preferences or institutional preferences are a key element of the preferred record that MetaDoor is going to suggest. And these preferences are part of what we call the enrichment profile. So this is a new profile that will determine if and how enrichment occurs. And institutions will be able to configure enrichment profiles in Alma to define preferences and other MetaDoor settings. So each profile will specify the 4 items we see here. So to which records can enrichment apply? How are we just focused on material type of print book? Are we doing this to journals, wax cylinders, and so on? So you can have multiple different profiles and determine which records the enrichment applies to. The profile also has the preference rules. So these are the different preferences, the cataloging standards and conventions and whatnot. Normalization rules and merge routines. So are you cleaning up or changing the data with the norm rules? And if we're merging together a new MetaDoor record into a brief bib, how does that work exactly? And then finally, automatic enrichment modes. And we'll talk about that shortly. But you can have multiple enrichment profiles that will meet your various needs. So in this screenshot, we see an example of different profiles that are configured to support different cataloging workflows. Print books will be enriched one way based on a certain set of preferences, while music items will probably behave differently in this example. And this screenshot shows the profile details for print books. For this profile, enrichment is based on the resource type, but we can also use indication rules to really granularly determine which record should be enriched. Every profile can specify its own preference rules based on criteria like subject authority and cataloging language, RDA format, and more. And you can define up to 4 rules on each profile, and those will apply in order of priority. So if we're looking at this print book here, or sorry, this example here, our print books will be enriched by the highest scoring MetaDoor record that uses LC subject headings, is an RDA format, and has a PCC indication. Or if no records meet that criteria, it will look for records that just use the LC subject heading. So the preferences run in order of priority. And then if no higher scoring records are matching those preferences, the record will not be enriched. So enrichment profiles are really fundamental to automatic enrichment as well. And this last setting is highlighted in pink here. It details how automatic enrichment does or does not occur. So let's go ahead and discuss that concept. So there are 3 components that are relevant to the automatic enrichment of new records in Alma: import, automatic enrichment, and enrichment control. Firstly, record import. Existing import profiles will pull new bibs into Alma manually or on a scheduled basis. And this is most likely something many of you are doing now. No changes need to be made to your existing import profiles. So records are pulled in just as usual. Next, the automatic enrichment process runs. So once, if it's enabled, if you decide to enable it, the job identifies and enriches newly imported records. And as we just saw, whether and how a record is enriched is going to depend on the various enrichment profiles that you can configure to meet your needs. And then finally, you can view the results of the process on the MetaDoor enrichment control page. So it's similar to something like the authority control task list, if you're familiar with that. The enrichment control page allows you to supervise the enrichment process. So let's focus on the automatic enrichment process. And there's 2 parts to that: a job and the enrichment profiles, which we saw. So the job runs every 4 hours to identify and improve newly imported records automatically. There are 3 modes or different types of enrichment, and the mode or type will depend on what was selected in your enrichment profile. So that was that pink box that we saw. The modes are automated, mediated, and none. Automated means that the record enrichment happens automatically via MetaDoor. You don't have to do a thing. Mediated means that the preferred MetaDoor records are suggested, but staff has to manually approve or reject the enrichment. And then none means that no enrichment will occur for particular records. So thinking back to the enrichment profile we saw, print books might have a fully automatic enrichment, while newly imported music items might require mediation. And then once the enrichment process runs, the newly imported records will be assigned various statuses, such as enriched, mediation required, better record not found, and more. So now we can open the MetaDoor enrichment control page and understand the results of the enrichment process. And this Alma page will allow us to view the records handled by the process, view the results of the process, and take next steps if needed. So if we return to our example of vendor records that we've imported using an EOD file, in this screenshot, we can see which records are processed, the statuses of the enrichment, and then the actions that you might take. So let's stick with that example, and we will do a quick demo. So I'm going to pop over to the MetaDoor enrichment control page here. It's also available under the resources menu, but I favorited it so I can get to it very quickly. And we see all of the bibs that have been processed with this new automatic enrichment process. One goal of this page is to see and work with those bibs that you've set to require mediation. So those records that the enrichment process is suggesting a higher quality record for, but you'd like to handle manually. So this first line here is one that has the mediation required status. And you can note the current rank, or kind of the original record rank for the bib that exists in Alma now is 87. And the preferred version rank is 89. So a little bit of a jump up. And here we can decide if this is something we want to take action on or not. And we can also see the preferred version source. So where is MetaDoor pulling this record from? In this case, it appears to be University of Minnesota. So from my action buttons here, I can go ahead and say, yes, I want to approve this enrichment. If I do that, it will change the status to mediation approved, and we can just go on about our day. Or we can reject or even edit this in the metadata editor. So if I click edit in MDE, that will show me a split screen mode where I can compare the original bib and the recommended bibliographic record. So a secondary purpose of this page is to have insight into this automatic enrichment process. So if we want to specifically look at the records that have been enriched, I can use the different facets to the side here, and we'll have more facets as well as more metadata in this screen as we continue to develop. But let's say I just want to see the enriched bibs. I can click enriched and my status changes, my list changes here, and I have a little bit of additional information. So we see the rank of the original rank of the record. We see the current rank because it was in fact enriched of 106, and then where these came from. These versions were brought in from. So you might be wondering why the final rank is higher in some cases, over 100. And at this point in development, we're continuing to adjust our scoring algorithm. So the highest quality records are often scoring higher than 100 points right now. We will, have a more clear scoring system once we're in general availability. Well, I'm going to go ahead and show you one more thing. So we're going to clear this. and I'll select better record not found. So this is a particular status that I think is interesting. So in this case, automatic enrichment was attempted, but no better version of this title was found. So, there's a number of reasons why that might happen, but perhaps in this case, the title is very new and it hasn't been cataloged by many other libraries at this point. And in a case where we have a status of better record not found, enrichment will be attempted again for these records. We'll attempt enrichment up to 3 times, and it will happen in intervals of 30 days. So, we're not saying, okay, well, this just came out and you're out of luck, but MetaDoor via Alma can check again a few times for you. So I hope that you found this portion of the presentation interesting. I hope you're seeing the potential for MetaDoor to help with your day-to-day work. The automatic improvement of records, I really believe was going to allow everyone to enjoy a better quality level without the need to improve each record one by one. And ultimately, we really want to simplify the process of finding existing metadata records so you can focus on describing your special and unique materials. So I'm going to pop out of my demo and we'll head back over to the PowerPoint here. So I'd like to address that question that is we're sometimes presented with about the relationship between the community zone and MetaDoor. And I think it's important that we provide a little bit of clarity here. So ultimately, the community zone and MetaDoor are separate but complementary services. So, the community zone is a really key component of electronic resource management workflows. And, that includes the knowledge base offerings for different various electronic collections and individual e-resources, metadata records, link resolving, access information, and more. So, as a shared knowledge base for e-resources, the value of the community zone continues to grow as we add more collections, as the collections change and update, as we enrich bibliographic records on our side, and the collections continue to be updated. So, that's very much a focus on e-resources, not just the metadata side of things, but also the access component. MetaDoor as a metadata platform is intended to provide high quality metadata in a really automatic, interesting, helpful way, but for those resources that don't exist in the community zone. So all of the other bibliographic materials. It's not providing any access. It is simply allowing for peer-to-peer sharing of bibliographic records. So this is kind of our vision, that they'll exist together in complementary services. We really think that having choice here is important, and it is each individual library's decision how to use both services. Some people are wondering, if we're going to be using MetaDoor to enrich the CZ records. We're not going to be doing that on our side. As I kind of stated at the top of the hour, we're not taking governance or ownership over the records being shared via MetaDoor, whereas the CZ, we do take ownership of those. However, there are ways where if you want to enrich the bibliographic records of e-resources, you can use MetaDoor to do that. So there's a variety of different paths here, but we do see them as complementary and distinct. So MetaDoor consists of 2 different tracks. It's a little bit different than most developments, but both of these tracks are mandatory as well as critical to the success of the project and the release of the platform. So the first one here is the functional track. And we want to develop all the required functionality and build a platform in such a way that it's answering community needs. So to this end, we're really working with our development partners to get here. And then the second track is about metadata. So as this is a community-based platform, we really need the community's willingness to share their catalogs in the platform. So this is really crucial to the initiative, to the success of the initiative. And we need enough sharing agreements from customers around the world to ensure that we have the kind of coverage and high quality metadata that will be helpful for the entire community to use MetaDoor. So early in the presentation, you saw some of the functionality that we designed for MetaDoor, and our development team is continuing to work in full force to make this happen. So in this section, I want to focus on the great group that's helping us shape this platform and our development partners that we're working with really closely to make sure that things are done right and answer the various needs of different libraries in the States and around the world. So we're really thrilled to be working with these development partners here. We have a diverse group of institutions from various regions in the US, Europe, and Israel. And they're single institutions as well as consortium, and we really appreciate these partnerships. It's amazing the amount of feedback that we're getting that can really help us ensure that we're meeting community needs, and we feel very confident that we have the right group to help us do that. I'm not sure if any of you have had a chance to sit in on any of the previous webinars that we've presented. We presented one in March and one in April, and we actually had some of our partners speak to their reasoning as to why that they've joined this, understand their interest, and discuss their motivation for this particular initiative. And for our session today, I took some of the quotes from their slides, then I thought I wanted to share them with you. So really, if I just summarize, our development partners really see the potential to improve the metadata quality, the opportunity to share and open the metadata, the motivation to share expertise in cataloging records with the global community, and to make metadata processes more efficient. So let's spend a little time on the metadata track. And this is really where the power of the community shines. I really like this quote from Southern Methodist University. They're one of our development partners, but they say, the more we share, the more we all benefit. And in short, this really speaks to the potential of the platform and the power of the community. And driving this development, driving this platform are our metadata principles. So MetaDoor is built with these principles in mind. It's built on these principles, and it allows you to enables you rather to really openly share your records. So firstly, as I've said, the platform will be available to any library free of charge. This is not just for ExLibris customers. Secondly, ExLibris does not claim ownership of shared records. The shared records continue to be your records, library records. We're not governing them, we're not taking ownership. There's no intention, in terms of governance at ExLibris to change or fix or merge the records. Once again, the shared records are provided as is to the libraries. MetaDoor is not a repository. Shared records are being provided in real time directly from Alma customer environments. So MetaDoor is really functioning as a broker. It's functioning as a metadata exchange. It is not a database. We're not pulling anything together, just a broker and index from point A to point B from a peer-to-peer perspective. And because MetaDoor is providing that preferred record service or making that suggestion to identify the best record, it's really just forwarding the records from one institution to another. Historically, record sharing has relied pretty heavily on the Z3950 standard for peer-to-peer searching and sharing. And this standard, as we all know, allows a library system to connect to another library catalog in order to search for these records and then import them. But the searchable elements are pretty limited. Only one library can be searched at a time among other restrictions. And like Z3950, MetaDoor really allows for that peer-to-peer record searching and sharing, but with significant enhancements. So if we consider the scale, it's so much larger. All of the participating library catalogs are searched simultaneously. You're getting the suggestion. We're providing the algorithmic scoring and so on. There are many different ways you can search, not limited to the few different searchable elements that Z3950 provides. And then the records will be shared under library designated license types. So CC0, CC BY NC, CC BY, other common license types allow records to be copied and shared in original or modified form by other libraries and institutions. So practically, the plan is that libraries will be able to designate user rights on the records, and where no such designation is made, shared records can default to a CC0 license. So very quickly, I'm going to run through a couple features that we've already created based on what we've heard from different libraries. One is that ability to exclude certain records from sharing. You can do this in a couple different ways, a couple different flavors. You can update a single record, you can batch update them, you can update new records when they're imported, and you can also search by the suppression tag. So this is what it would look like in the metadata editor. So you're working on a record and you can select suppress from MetaDoor individually. You've created a set of records here, for example, and then you can run the job to designate the entire set as suppressed from MetaDoor. Or if you're importing a particular group of records, you can set the suppression at the import level. We've also heard from our development partners and a few others that we've talked to that normalization is important. So we want to normalize before sharing. So you might have some local fields that you just don't want to share with the community, and you can define normalization rules to remove those fields before sharing. So this cleanup is done in real time, only when MetaDoor shared your records with another library, and it's not actually affecting your local records as they appear in Alma. And here is a screenshot of the approach that we're using here. So I really hope that the session today illustrated the huge potential to improve metadata workflows in the library. And I've tried to cover both sides of using the platform, as well as aspects of the sharing and contribution on the community side. But this is really just the beginning, and we have some great plans to extend MetaDoor into additional workflows. So I'm inviting you to join and share your records with the platform. We hope that you'll take part to help us open the community, to share records with one another in a really exciting way. As I've mentioned early on, we do need your agreement to share records. We're not just going to take your records and index them from Alma without your approval. So if this is something you're interested in doing some sharing, we have prepared a sharing agreement that we can send out. So if you're interested in this concept, if you're interested in just learning more, please feel free to email me and the rest of the team at metador_info@exlibrisgroup.com. Additionally, we're planning an early adopters program towards the end of the year. At this point, we're looking at about November. The lift for that is quite minimal, a couple meetings and a little bit of time hands-on with MetaDoor. So you get a sneak peek of the service, as well as giving us some feedback about the direction that you'd like to see it go in. So if you're interested in that opportunity, you can email us at that same email here, metador_info@exlibrisgroup.com. So thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate everyone taking the time to learn more about MetaDoor. And I see there are a few questions. So
yeah, there are a few questions. Thank you, Jamie, so much for that presentation.
Thank you.
Our first question is from Amy Parsons. She asked, would the MetaDoor platform be available to non-ExLibris cataloging systems? It kind of feels like a smarter version of OCLC.
Sure. So the answer is yes. We're actually talking with another large vendor right now about them using the APIs to be able to embed MetaDoor in their systems. So the intent is that MetaDoor will be free, it will be open for any library, non-ExLibris as well as ExLibris, so that the things that I showed you in Alma could hopefully be available in other library systems as well.
And this may go to the next question because you said could hopefully. So Lucy Harrison says, I'm still unclear on how non-Alma libraries can make their records available via MetaDoor. I get how they can use the open service to find records from others, but not how they can make their own records available. Can you elaborate?
Sure. So at this point, the contribution is primarily coming from Alma libraries. We have the technical capacity to very easily index those resources. So our focus initially is on Alma libraries for contribution. There are a few libraries that don't fall into that category, like some of the national libraries are not on Alma. We have a separate process to deal with the national libraries. But at this point, our focus really is on contribution from Alma libraries. But as Lucy said, MetaDoor can be used as an open service by anyone.
Okay, our next question you've already answered, I believe, from Ann Mills at KSU. Is this an alternative to OCLC WorldCat?
I would say yes. This is something that we're offering in terms of choice into the marketplace. I like how Amy mentioned, maybe a smarter version, and that is really our focus. We want to create something that is allowing you to very easily share in a peer-to-peer manner with some efficiencies, really, saving your time. There are, different approaches to this, and we just want to make this available so that you have a choice.
Okay, and the last question we have here comes from Tamika Jackson. Will there be a cost down the line as MetaDoor becomes popular? Sure.
So the answer is no. We're really dedicated to this investment in the library community, and the things that we've talked about today, all of the functionality and these concepts. This is part of MetaDoor, and we are committed to keeping it free and open.
Okay, well, that looks like all the questions that we have for today. Thank you all attendees for being attentive and participating by asking questions. And thank you again to Jamie for bringing this presentation to us. As we mentioned earlier on, the recording will be available later, as well as Jamie's slides. So you'll be able to review them when you would like. Again, thank everyone so much and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you, everybody. Bye now.
Bye.